Welcome to everybody joining us this evening. Thank you for taking some time out to come along and hear us have a chat. I'm going to kick off with the question we like to ask everybody, Brenna, which is, when did you first become interested in permaculture and why did it stick?
That's a great question. Hi everybody, so great to be here tonight, and I'm here in lovely Noongar Budja, Noongar country in Western Australia. So you'll watch it slowly get darker as the hour goes on, as we're right on that time here at dusk at the moment. Why did I first get into permaculture? I did that thing after university, that cliched Australian thing where you take off with a one-way ticket to India to try to find yourself, which I'm a little embarrassed to admit now. But I did that, and the idea was that, yeah, I just was looking for something other than the kind of work treadmill that I'd found myself on after my studies, and ended up being overseas for 6 years. Most of that was in the Americas. And in that time, I cycled a bicycle, a secondhand bicycle, which cost me $60 on the Canadian equivalent of Gumtree, all the way from Canada through the US and through Central America to Panama, living very simply with one change of clothes and camping every night, and meeting really interesting people. And a lot of the people that I was meeting and who were inviting me to stay with them were talking about this thing called permaculture. And sometimes I had coffee table books, and I remember seeing Bill Mollison's name around on the coffee tables of the places we were staying, reading a bit here and there. And that really started this huge transformation in my life. After the cycle trip, I said, right, I'm going to learn more about this sort of thing. So I spent the next 2 years volunteering in places in South America, most of them permaculture properties or projects, and eventually did my permaculture design course in Chile in 2014, all in Spanish, and decided I wanted to be a permaculture teacher and dedicate my life to permaculture.
So interesting, Brenna. What a journey. Most of us just, do a PDC in Australia. You're a really talented artist working in a range of different areas, including children's book illustration and T-shirt design, and you're obviously very well known as the illustrator behind Retrosuburbia. But these days you're probably best known for your cartoons. Why do you think this medium appeals to so many people?
So yeah, I've kind of got two styles: the more realistic style that's in Retrosuburbia in the book Our Street in Milkwood's book, and then this cartoon style, which actually, fun fact, was kind of just how I would draw when I thought no one would see it. Like, when you're on the phone to somebody and you've got an idea and you're just sketching away, that's what that style is for me. And I've been using it ever since I was a little kid. And I keep a journal. I've kept one since I was 18 years old, and a lot of them are illustrated in this cartoon style. So at some stage I thought, okay, well, I've illustrated Retrosuburbia. That was my first gig as an illustrator. I'm going to be an illustrator. Great. Now, how do I use that as my form of activism? And I thought, I can do drawings kind of like what I'm doing in my journals and kind of like what I filled all these notebooks with, but share them with other people. And the ease of using cartoons, there's a reason that we, as we were talking about before, Meg, we see cartoons in newspapers and they're in magazines and, they're all over the television. There's a reason for that. It's because they're accessible to us. They're very expressive, much more than a realistic style. They're very colourful. They can have body posture and facial expressions that far exceed anything that realism can achieve. And so they draw us in. They reach us on an emotional level. And so I started just drawing cartoons about things that were important, like climate solutions, social justice, big issues like deforestation, plastic pollution, all the things that are, realities for all of us walking the earth right now. And people reacted really well to them. There's kind of a softening of the message when you package it in a way that has humour and vibrancy, and the cartoons really bring that to the fore. So I tried a few, they got a great response, and I kept going from there. And that's how now I've got hundreds of these things that have been published online, 1 or 2 every week for the past 4 years now.
Fantastic. So we're all keen to see some of your favourites, Brenna, and talk us through what it is you love about them and any of the other background information you feel like sharing.
Sure thing. I'll do a screen share. Mm-hmm. You can see my screen, can't you, Meg? Ooh, can you hear me? Thumbs up. Okay, I can't hear
Sorry,
Meg. But...
I was muted.
Oh, great.
so that if I cough, I don't cut you off.
Okay, as long as you can hear me, that's the main thing.
Yep.
So this is one of the illustrations. I'll just see if I can minimize this. There we go. Great. Look at me, tech wizard. This is one that's done quite well I released it about a year ago. And this is probably the most successful image I've had. It was shared millions of times all over the place. And wow, the response was huge. You know, when you look at your inbox and it's just full of stuff and you realize something's happened overnight while you're asleep. This was one of those images. I think why it resonates with people is because in an image, you can say so much more than you can in words. We all have a sense that COVID we're kind of like the cocoon, right? And before us was the caterpillar, and ahead of us, hopefully, will be this butterfly. And this is the uncomfortable change in the middle. And so by dividing the image into 3 here, I've kind of shown that intuitively. You can, through the design of the image, you can say a lot without having to be explicit. And so, yeah, can you guys see me while I'm talking, or you can just see my screen? See me? Great.
We can see you, Brent. Well, I can see you over to the side of my screen. Fab. And I can see your image in big picture in the middle of my screen. So it looks tremendous.
Okay, lovely. I'll get back to that one in a second. This one I really love. So in the middle, we've got a little person here surrounded by all of the trappings of life, probably looking quite a bit like I was when I actually drew this. And then the dog's got a tutu, you know, he's got a picture of nature up here. The calendar's just sliding by. There's crappy food and a waste bin full of stuff. And they walk out like a zombie, which we've all felt, and then end up down and seeing, oh wow, there's a different way, and here's some people planting trees outside and hanging out and having music around the fire. And it says, what does it mean to be human? What is it that, you know, it's the image at the top is kind of what we're sold as what a human is, that we're in there working in our little boxes all day and being productive for society, where really for almost all of human history, those sorts of things, it wasn't even a concept, it wasn't even a possibility. And being outside and being together, singing and tending the earth and connecting with nature is really what it's all about for us. I'll have to repost this one now I've seen it again. That's great. Meg, we were chatting a bit about this earlier. Industrial agriculture, you know, it has its place. It's done a lot of things, some of those good, some of those not so good. But permaculture is just such a fabulous, holistic way of seeing the world, and to show these two side by side and to show, not just say, but actually show how permaculture can undo the damage and regenerate the kind of the landscape that we're leaving in our wake, felt really powerful. And it was so nice when this actually resonated with so many people. I got a lot of great feedback from this one, people saying, oh, this is what I was thinking, thank you for putting it into words. And when you're into permaculture, you hear about all these great ideas like this, and you learn this in your permaculture course, you learn this in the permaculture books. And so for me to be able to take that knowledge and put it out into an illustration for people who maybe aren't involved in the permaculture scene, who haven't heard these concepts before, or who maybe have just heard them on a superficial level, but, you know, haven't really internalized that information. It feels really good. Like, there's a magic in permaculture. We're all drawn to it because it makes so much sense. And it, you know, it's so solutions oriented. So that's one of the things that I like to try to show with my work.
Brenna, this is one of my favorite, and the reason is that when people struggle to answer a question about what is permaculture, I send them this cartoon.
Oh, that's so good to hear, Meg. I've got a couple more. This one is a bit hard to see up the top. If we wait for the government, it will be too late. And there's ScoMo with his buddies, gas, oil and coal in the air-conditioned palace. And if we act as individuals, it will be too little. And we've all kind of felt that thing that we can be surrounded by a sea of destruction and have the best tomatoes in the world, but really, you know, we've got to go the extra step. That stuff's important. And we should do it definitely for more reasons than just climate. It brings so much happiness to our lives, but it can't end there at our little gate, at our fence. And if we act as communities, it might just be enough. So this is actually a quote by the fabulous Rob Hopkins, who founded the Transition Towns movement. And he actually came to that work through permaculture and looking for kind of the next step as well, back when permaculture was more focused around permanent agriculture. And of course, permaculture has flourished into permanent culture now and overlaps so much with transition towns. But his latest book, From What Is to What If, had this quote in there. And, you know, this is how I get inspiration for drawings. I read my library. I don't know if they love me or hate me. I'm always in there hassling them to get the latest books and trying to convince them that other people will want to read them too. And come home with a big stack and I read them and highlight things and then erase the highlighted bits as I write them into my notebooks. And that's how I catch and store these ideas. And this quote's an example of that. I had to do something with it. I wrote it down, and then in the right moment, it became this image. And this again has been shared so many times. 1 million women shared this a couple of days ago, and I just went on to check. From their account, it had been shared 13,000 times. And each of those accounts means that some other people are seeing it, resharing it. And that's how the message can get out there. I use social media as a vehicle for that. It's kind of how I have an art exhibition. And yes, social media are owned by big multinational corporations and they create division, but they also enable positive messages to get out there. So I'm all for using them for what they're good for, not letting them to use us. They played a crucial role in Extinction Rebellion and in the school strike for climate movements. And they're helping to get messages like this one out there to the people that need to see them.
It's a great point, Brenna. And I also make the observation that those algorithms are now influencing public policy and politicians. And if we're not feeding this stuff into that algorithm, other people are feeding their stuff into that algorithm. So when you put a cartoon in like this and it gets that kind of viral response, that has influence beyond just the people who see the cartoon. That has influence on the algorithm and the people that monitor it as well.
Yeah, and there's, you know, when these things go out into the world, and especially one like this that's been shared that many times, I hear back from people the effect that it has, and it's the diversity of the effect is always really amazing. There's homeschool families that use this sort of thing as, you know, they'll take one image and that will become a lesson plan, and then they'll show me that the kids drew their own thing, or they went out and followed the image and made a nature journal. I've got academics come to me all the time saying, I use this in my university lecturers. We organised a whole subject around this, or there was a whole assessment based on this. High school as well in design and art subjects, but also in philosophy, in science subjects, are using these sorts of images to base entire lessons. And so it's not just that people see it on their phone and get a little bit of a thrill and feel a bit better. Community gardens are printing these out to send out and get more people to attend their community garden working bees. Like, you whatever you put out there in the world, you can't really control the ripples, but you've just got to give those ripples the best chance of being powerful and being positive. And yeah, that's what I try to do. And it's, you know, it's so nice when I see people send me photos with what's become of these. This one I re-released recently. I actually made this for a well-known permaculture colleague who was feeling pretty down about their choices and maybe the state of things after the big fires a couple of years ago. And they were saying, look, we live near a city. We've been publicly advertising that we have all this food for years. Everyone knows where we are, very visible. If there's some sort of crisis and violence ensues and people are desperate for food, they're going to come to us. And am I putting my family in danger? And they were kind of worrying, should we head to the hills and start living in a bunker instead? And so I made this image for them, and it says, the question isn't how can I save myself, it's how can I be most useful during this transition? And thinking this way to me offers a lot of relief, because it kind of takes that responsibility off us to know what the future holds. So if there's no huge crisis, great. We're growing some food or whatever our thing is. We're having fun. We're doing free workshops. We're teaching the kids. We're being a great parent. You know, whatever it is that your thing is. Not everyone wants to grow food. That's fine. We're making art. And if there is a crisis, well, hopefully we've built some resilience into our household system and also into our communities. And community resilience, if anyone has lived through a crisis, whether it be the fires or a big storm, or even, you know, even little ones like a blackout, if you know people around you and you know who to check in on in a heat wave, and you know who to call in a fire, or who to give paper when COVID happens and everyone panic buys all of it, you know, these sorts of things actually have been proven to lead to better outcomes in crisis situations. So that's my philosophy. Chucked it in this image, and yeah, people seem to gain a lot of hope from it. My one point with this one, it says the not so magical land of away up the top there, was that you some things you just can't describe in words. You try to make this joke and or you could talk about how plastic isn't very good and that we have this issue with landfill, and, you know, and it just starts sounding really heavy and people shut down because, oh, yes, we're guilty. Yes, I'm sorry, I bought plastic last week. Oh, or you can show it in one image and bam, people get it. There's humor, it's interesting. It sends a message without saying the message explicitly. And I think that's part of why images can be so powerful. And this was where it all started. It says at the top there, if you like it, then you should have put a fence on it, which is an ode to Beyonce's all the single ladies, all the single ladies. And it's one of the first images I did, and it still gets reshared over and over again all these years later. And again, it's, you know, it's encouraging people to grow food and the magic of gardening and living a land-based lifestyle, but without telling people they have to. It's just implied in the joy of the image, and, you know, the fun of using Beyonce as a cultural reference.
For anyone who's new to Brenna's work, if you go back through her body of work, there's a whole series of these based on different pop songs. They're great fun.
I spent way too long thinking about pop songs. That's
well, probably more now. You're living with a musician, so
yeah. I think I've got a little. Oh no, wait. I'll close that. How cool is this? So this is an image I did quite a while back. Yeah, showing what goes into a highly processed drink, and what goes into just collecting your own rainwater and drinking it out of a repurposed bottle. And I'd love to, I've been meaning to for years, but, you know, do this for, you know, snacks. You can have the worst snack in the world, or you can have the best one, and they're both valid options. And we kind of met with these decisions every day, but one of them is just so much better for you, for the environment, for all the people involved in the production chain, everything. But it's just such a tiny decision. And so this hopefully would tip people into making the better decision. But I just got word from a fantastic woman who's been translating my stuff into Chinese, and she did this one today. So she's very prolific. I've got a whole bunch of them. I've got to figure out what to do with all of these translations. I've got tons of them now. So that'll be my next project. I'm collecting them, filing them away, and then figuring out how to release them to their respective permaculture organisations.
I think you should just put them in your Instagram feed. I think particularly if you do them one after the other.
Yeah, because I love the ones like this. I've got Ukrainian ones, I've got Russian, I've got, Spanish and Portuguese and French. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I don't know what that says, but I just think it's so intriguing to look at those little characters.
Yeah, look, I think that we've got a huge, as you know, we're a hugely diverse community in Australia, and many of them with family in countries of origin and things like that. I reckon if you did a swipe on, see the different language versions of this cartoon, that would be really cool.
Yeah, all right, good idea. You heard it here first, folks.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a note here from one of our Zoom participants, Lisa Riley, who says you could share them to the Ethnic Communities Council or Chinese newspapers and WeChat. And she also says they are awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's some really good ideas. I'll sit down and have a think about for each language the best way to get them out, because some countries don't have a permaculture body that represents them, which would be, I know in Spanish, so I can go there because I've studied in Spanish and I've got those connections, but some places it's really challenging. So that's a good train of thought.
We have someone offering to translate them into Greek for you.
Yes. Get in touch after this. I've got this other image up on screen. This is from David Holmgren's book, Retrosuburbia. And there's 130 illustrations in that book. All of them are done by hand. So I didn't know the first thing about Photoshop. I didn't own Photoshop back then. That was my first gig as an illustrator. I was always an artist, but David asked me to illustrate. I quickly went and Googled what an illustrator did. I came back to him and said yes, and then spent the next 4 months creating the illustrations in that book. And every time something needed to be changed, it was either redraw the whole thing or redraw a small part, literally cut it out with scissors and glue it on. So now my mum's given me an iPad she wasn't using, and I've learned to use that in the past year, and that's actually made the process so much simpler. It's the same drawing, the same everything, but you can just tap to delete. You don't have to redraw the whole thing. But I show this to show the example of the other style that I do, which is a bit more realistic, but can still, I guess, show a lot of complex information in one image. These are my favorite things to do, these kind of holistic mind maps. I'm always hoping when I check my inbox that someone else is asking me to do a circular economy diagram or something like that. It just makes me so happy to be able to show it, because you can't explain it in any other way.
Yeah, they're awesome, Brenna. I really love them too. And you're still hand coloring, aren't you? You're using your iPad for sketching and then printing it and still doing the watercolors by hand, aren't you?
Yeah, mostly. For some of the stuff I release on Instagram and Facebook, I'll do it all on the iPad. And then for other jobs like Bee Detectives, a kid's book that I had come out, that was the first project that I'd actually done digitally. So I drew everything digitally, printed everything out on a regular black and white laser printer, and then painted it all in watercolors by hand, scanned it back in, sent it off. So yeah, I'm sticking to that level of complexity. I still love watercolors. I'm not ready to let them go yet, but I can see why so many illustrators have gone digital. It's very easy. Trace Balla, who's a fantastic author illustrator from Castle, Maine, and she's a little older than me and not so technologically minded. She was the one that called me up and said, Brenna, start thinking about digital. If I can do it, you can. So I'm a fan of drawing digitally, but you know, it's just I still do live drawing every week here in town. It's such a pencil on paper is such an important skill to maintain.
May I ask a quick question?
Okay, I'm just checking. I've lost Brenna. Has everybody else still got her?
I think so.
Can you still hear her, Sandy?
Yeah, I can still hear Brenna.
Okay. Brenna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, you're back. Hooray.
Brenna, can I just ask a quick question about, well, it's about that previous illustration, but maybe some others as well. When you go to, do you brainstorm them at all? Because there's so much information in there, and I just love the way your brain works. There's just so much information there. Does it all come to you at once, or do you sit and think about it, or?
I'll show this one again. Yeah, so I guess there's kind of different mindsets with an illustration. So the first one is the ideas, and literally what I'll do is I have a piece of paper and I'll draw a circle for each idea and a keyword in each one. So in this one, that's why you can kind of see like way is here, that would have been a circle, bread would have been a circle, scraps would have been a circle. And sometimes, you know, they're piled all on top of each other. So then I go and do a second layer and make the circles, you know, a bit neater. And this is like a circle, this person's a circle, the goat's a circle. And that's how I think, and you see in some of my illustrations on social media, that I actually draw the circle around the thing because that's how I've done it. So I enter into that creative phase, and that's my favorite part of illustrating. And then the next phase is tightening it up and making sure the design works. So if this was half off the page, it wouldn't work. So I shift everything over, redraw it again. Again, that's where the iPad makes it easier because I can just drag it over. But before, I'd just do 8-10 different pieces of paper to get the design working with all of the elements in there. And then the next phase is drawing and then painting. And I mean, the drawing and painting are really fun too. I can't listen to anything while I'm doing the first three, the brainstorming, the design, or the drawing. But once I get to painting, I can put on a podcast. If I'm doing a book, if I'm, you know, which is a big project, I'll put on an audiobook and just listen to that and kind of zone out. But yeah, the other three are very intense. And I kind of, after, you know, 6 hours, I'll be all like buckled over the page, and my neck will be sore and my back will be sore because you enter this zone of, it's just like creative expression. I don't know how you put it, but it's like this, you forget to eat and you forget that you're uncomfortable and you forget that you had a Zoom call or something, and then you come out of it, well, oh, right, yeah, the dogs need to be walked, or, you know, whatever it is. But I definitely find that first step so much fun because you're looking at a blank page and it's just your ideas, you know, what goes into a goat, what products come from a goat, what's related to that, you know, you just get to put everything that's in your brain into some sort of logical order so that other people can see it. It's like this, like a mind reading technique.
It's just phenomenal. It's yeah, it's just like a feast for your eyes. Sorry, the comment here saying that's an amazing description of your thought and design processes. Thank you. Sorry, I shall be quiet now.
They're great. They're great questions, Sandy. Thank you so much. Brenna, you said you wanted to go back to the cartoon you did on privilege. Do you still want to do that?
Yeah, sure thing. Give me a second. So I put this in here. Meg and I were having a chat earlier today about what illustrations of mine have been contentious. And so most of the climate stuff that I release, I guess, is framed so positively that I've never really, I mean, aside from the odd troll who are just, you know, most of the time not even people, they're just computers trying to wind people up. Yeah, almost exclusively the reactions have been very positive. But the most contentious territory that I've wandered into was during the Black Lives Matter protests last year. And I was trying to add my voice to what I saw, what I believe still is a very important issue. I know as a woman that sometimes it feels very lonely to be the only person standing up for women. And sometimes it's such a relief when other people have that conversation on my behalf to help other people, you know, who maybe don't understand that the way they're speaking or acting isn't so great, to help them to understand the better way to do things. And so I put this image together. This was, I think, the most viral image I've ever had. This was one of those ones I went to sleep, woke up the next day and went, oh my goodness, there's been something going down overnight. And again, 80% of comments were wonderful, but the hashtags that I use to identify this image, that's a system of identifying images I use on Instagram, were being followed by certain people who wanted to cause trouble and had kind of racist intentions. And so it was difficult because I put this thing out there that was then getting a reaction that would be hurtful for the people I was trying to help. And so I had to be glued to my phone for about a week, deleting all of the negative comments before they landed, you know, to do more damage than what I had wanted. But overwhelmingly, the response was fantastic. This put into words again what people had been thinking but hadn't really known how to articulate. And it's this image as well still does the rounds, and very high profile accounts have been sharing this since it was released. It helped me to understand how white privilege works, which is basically why I make all of my illustrations. I thought about this for about 5 days non-stop. What's the best way that I can understand this subject? And then the idea of balloons came in and the hill, and I thought, yes, now I understand it. Okay, all right, I guess I can draw that. And I actually had one woman get very upset with me because I use balloons. And she said, we can't use balloons these days. Brenna, I love your work, but it's not okay. And she was very upset, sent me a long email. And I had to say, in the context of my other plastic-free work, I really don't think that many people are going to go and buy balloons after seeing this image. I'm sorry, but I appreciate the sentiment. I appreciate your passion.
Let me explain metaphor to you.
I might have said that as well, trying to be polite.
Yeah. The good news is they're paper balloons because they're painted on paper.
That's it. They're not real.
So Brenna, as you know, but perhaps some of the people joining us don't know, I've been involved in moderating responses to your cartoons as part of my volunteer role on the Permaculture Australia page. And from time to time, we've had really serious pushback against cartoons like that one and your Black Lives Matter cartoons, saying, oh, well, that's not permaculture. You know, bring back the gardening. Why are we dealing with all this political stuff? How is this related to permaculture? I know my answer to that, and you've read my answers to that, my often lengthy answers to that question, but I'd really love your take on it.
We can sum it up in 2 words: people care. We're here to make life better for people and planet, not just for ourselves. And it might feel uncomfortable to admit that even though we've worked hard in our lives, we've still been able to get where we are with a little bit of help from our privileged balloons. But that uncomfortableness is important to feel and to work with. Permaculture needs to keep with the times to stay relevant. And it's a huge risk that we stick to gardening to the detriment of all other social and environmental causes. Like, the world's changing. Permaculture has changed a lot since the 1970s. If you go to any permaculture design course, I mean, people that are teaching permaculture regularly are seeing that the demographic, the needs, the wants, the level of understanding of people coming to permaculture courses is changing dramatically as well. The courses I used to teach with Milkwood near Sydney, most people that were coming to the course weren't interested in land-based design because they were never going to own land or a house. They're all young people, Milkwood's demographic, young people living in apartments in city, wanting to know the Retrosuburbia way of doing things because they were renters and would be long term. And so it's exciting to see these shifts, and permaculture is a life philosophy. It's an opportunity to apply our principles to new scenarios, to new ways of thinking, and permaculture can either excel at this or it can be left behind in the dust. So I think permaculture is too good to leave it behind. So that's why I keep permaculture current.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Brenna. It's a really great response. And when you're talking about principles, I'm always interested in knowing Holmgren or Mollison, do you have a favourite set? Or Morrow or someone else?
I have to say Holmgren. I lived with him for 4 wonderful years. He's a beautiful person, and where the permaculture design course that I first did in Chile used David Holmgren's principles, which I was then translating in my head to English, and it was all very complicated. But I appreciate them. And we have a card deck and a poster as well that have made more user-friendly versions of Dave Holmgren's principles, because I mean, they're very widespread, but we were finding it somewhat of a challenge to introduce those concepts to kids in a 1-hour workshop. So we made up a poster and a card deck to help us. And lo and behold, other people wanted to have them as well because they're easier to remember. I know you've got a fantastic set as well, Meg, which I remember the little hand symbols from you telling me 4 years. So hopefully yours will take over the world. You get my vote.
Oh, thanks, Bren. Yeah, they're actually they're picking up steam. A lot of people are using them, particularly trainers like them. And we have found they translate really well into very good design work, because people can have a set that they can refer to while they are designing at each stage of the design, which was kind of the point, that you didn't just learn them at the beginning of the course and then go off and do designing that was somehow unrelated to principles. So yeah, you know me, I'm all about the design process. I'm really interested in knowing, Brenna, are you doing any designing, any permaculture designing? I mean, I think it's fair to say you're applying permaculture design to your artwork, but apart from that, are you doing any other permaculture design work?
So of recent, I've been doing a lot. Charlie and I have just moved here to Southwest WA, and there's a permaculture course. There's a couple about 4 hours drive north of here, and one about 5.5 hours drive north of here, but nothing down here on the tail of the continent. And so we've been getting lots of requests. So I've done a few designs for people who've been generous enough to let us house sit for them while we're currently building our place. And the really exciting thing is we've bought a block of land, a little 1/4 acre, in a permaculture intentional community. This place was actually run in the 80s as a permaculture demonstration site. It was running permaculture design courses. It was Dave Coleman's place. It used to be called Living Waters, and they've since subdivided it. Now there's about 15 families living there, 44 acres of forest in the middle. There's a north side, a south side, community gardens, an old orchard, and we've been helping to design the entire community. So it's a big process because you involve everybody, right? And you do everyone's little individual lot design. Some people have already built houses, some people haven't, so all at different stages. And then I'll be facilitating a big community design process in October, and really excited about that.
Fantastic.
We need it.
Yeah. That's exciting. And the two of you will be building and filming the whole thing at the same time, yes?
Yeah, check out Grow Do It, our YouTube channel, for very silly, short, entertaining, easy to digest house planning fun. There's the highs and the lows. So yeah, that'll be probably a 2-year process while we build our place, and trying to use as ecologically aware materials as possible. Of course, all house building requires some compromise, but we're going to do the best we can. And after that, it'll transition into information about how we're living permaculture and how to make grits cheese and how to grow your first veggie patch and all that sort of fun stuff too.
Cool. Brenna, what are you most proud of? And if you can't pick a thing, if you can't pick just one thing, just give me a thing you are very proud of.
You know, for me, it's having found my place, my path. When I was overseas for those 6 years and I was volunteering and learning a lot and having all these kind of huge experiences that have made me who I am now. And at some stage, you know, after a few years, you're thinking, where is this leading? And it became, by the time I'd landed at Meliadora at David Holmgren and Sue Dennett's property as their intern, I was thinking, how much longer will this go on for? Do I spend another 5 years doing this, or do I get a career at some stage? You know, what do I want to be a volunteer forever? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to, but is that okay with my grandmother's expectations of me? I don't know. And when the opportunity to illustrate Retrosuburbia fell in my lap, it really brought together my passion for art with my passion for environmentalism and permaculture in a way that I had never imagined. Like, being an artist and being a permaculturalist, they're like the two worst paying jobs in the world, right? And you can't do that. That can't be your thing. But I made it my thing. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful to David for giving me that opportunity, because I probably would have kept stumbling along in the wrong direction for another few years. I don't know. I'm proud that I feel like I've got a niche now. And when I turn up to teach on a PDC, you know, there's a lot that I've learned that I can now share with people. And it's, you know, it's impacting this place that we're setting up in this gorgeous eco village, and it's given me all these skills to land here and really hit the ground running. So yeah, I'm happy I've got my place and my people. When you find permaculture, you find your tribe.
Yeah, so true. That's I was saying to someone recently, the best part for us about deciding to teach from home has been we're now surrounded by so many amazing people. Like we've just, and the same with taking on running Permaculture Central Coast. You know, we've just met all these really lovely people. Brenna, we're at 7:45. Look at us go with our brilliant timing. And thank you so much for chatting with me this evening. We've left 15 minutes at the end for anybody who would like to ask Brenna a question. If you can type them into the chat, please. And I'm going to hand over to Sandy, and Sandy will be selecting questions to ask Brenna. Then I'll come back at the very end and say goodbye to everyone.
Okay. I was going to say, if people want to just raise their hand, I will unmute you and you can ask the question.
There's a couple of questions I can see already. Should I get to those, Sandy?
Well, that was mine. What does a community design process actually look like? It just sounds so immense. I was trying to, yeah, unpackage it. So yes, if you wouldn't mind, that yeah, I'd love to know a bit more.
Sure thing. And I'll just quickly answer this other one by Lisa. Is it okay with community gardens to use my work? Yes. Anything that helps get the message out there, any project that's doing good in the world, you're very welcome to use my work. You can email me through my website, brennaquinlan.com, or through, you know, Facebook, Instagram, all the ways. Find me, ask me, I'll send through a high-res version. You can use it. Some people also support me on Patreon for a few bucks a month. And in that way, you gain access to all of my whole catalogue that you can download and use how you like in your newsletters, print them, stick them up at work, stick them in your toilet. I don't care, whatever. It's all good. Wonderful. But yes, you can use it for free as well.
Thanks, Brenna. That's amazing.
Community design process. So Kat Labors, who you may know her from The Plumbery, named so because her small permaculture demonstration site in Melbourne had a plum tree when she first moved there. If you haven't heard of Kat Labors, The Plumbery, look for her on Happen Films YouTube channel. They have a really fantastic Happen Films segment about her. It's got over 1 million views. It's a great example of small scale design. And so
she's the lady with the quail. The quails. Yes. Yeah, I thought I knew the name. Yeah.
She works in her local council doing all sorts of amazing regenerative permaculture focused stuff. And one of the things she does is she teaches community groups who want to, say, make a community garden. She facilitates a process of group design over the course of an afternoon to get all the, she'll have like 20 people that hardly know each other, but they all live in the same area. And she'll come up with this cohesive, land-based, beautiful permaculture design in an afternoon. I didn't believe it until I saw her do it. He's incredible. So I'm going to get on the phone to her and get her to walk me through it again, step by step, because I need all the help I can get with this community. I mean, anyone who's ever had a community project knows people are the hardest thing in the world to conquer. But let's talk again in October and see if I'm still smiling after we've given it a crack.
Wow. Does anyone else have a question?
So Brenna,
here we go.
Brenna, I'm going to call you in October and get you to walk me through that design process, because in my facilitation days, I've had similar experiences, but I've never joined the facilitation. Well, I have joined facilitation with permaculture, but never to do that type of design. And now I'm thinking, where's the community I can find? I've always wanted to turn a suburban street into an eco-village. I think that would be an easy thing to do if you could find a street of people who all wanted to create an eco-village where they live currently rather than moving to one. I think that would be really cool.
I think that would be great. You're the person to do it.
Yeah. There is a question here from Lisa again. Have you heard of Earth Song Eco Neighbourhood in Auckland? Lisa just did a four day, Lisa?
Workshops 4 Monday evenings on Zoom.
It's designed with permaculture principles.
Wow, I haven't heard of Earth Song, but I'm going to look them up straight after this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of them either, but because I'm part of the Narara Eco Village, I heard about the workshop on co-housing, and it was Rob and Alison who shared their sort of 20-year journey of getting this land and doing this whole community design process. So one of the evenings it was about the design, the other evening was about how they worked out the finances and the legal stuff and all the decision making, and yeah, it was great.
Wow, so interesting.
Yeah,
that is kind of the future, really, isn't it? If we're talking about building community, having the ability to do that, to actually transform communities to get them to do the design, I think that's just phenomenal. Does anyone else have a question? Come on. Beck from Beck. Brenna, I missed you at the permaculture teacher training in Brisbane earlier this year. Great to hear you speak about your incredible work. That was from Beck Richardson.
Oh, thanks, Beck. Because I missed that one, I got in touch with Rose straight away and said, you're coming over to WA. They've had one teacher training course here run over 10 years ago by Ross Mars with a slightly different focus. It was more about tertiary education, from what I understand. So they really haven't had a Romoro style teacher training here. And I love running that course with Ro and with Hannah Maloney, who I've taught with as well. So she said yes, and she's coming out and bringing permaculture teacher training to WA. We're like a different country over here in WA.
It's a long way away. So Ro is coming over there.
She is COVID permitting. She'll be here in December.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, good, making things happen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anybody else? You know what, we've just got notes of appreciation here, but we haven't had any other questions. So we might have to give you an early mark unless anyone's got something.
My good friend Charlie McGee is going to come in and just give a wave to the crowd.
Oh, cool.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, Charlie McGee, we play your song every Wednesday morning.
Oh, that's nice. How you going, Lisa? How you going, Meg?
Yeah. Oh wait, you're the
hang on. I've got to admit, Meg, she's just fallen off.
Oh.
Hang on, she'll be back. She'll be with you in half a second.
so excited she fell off.
Hooray, I'm back.
I hope you guys are getting some of the beautiful spring weather that supposedly is here, which
It's
it isn't
raining.
quite even spring yet, but
It's been
Charlie,
raining.
it's raining and freezing here.
oh, sorry to hear. We
No, it's
must have
good.
just had an early bonus.
It's good. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, great. Flat out trying to get a house built and, you know, landscape a permaculture demonstration site and getting the hands dirty. It's big.
I said to Brenna at the start, I need to contact you to book you in to do one of these with us. We'd love to have a chat and bring a ukulele.
Sounds great.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Well, we'll see you at the next one.
Yeah, cheers. That'll be awesome.
All right, I'll leave you to it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. I don't think we've got any more questions, Meg. So
Terrific.
we could all unmute and.
In the middle of all that, I got logged out and logged back in and
Yes.
missed the last bit. So thank you again, Brenna. It's always just an absolute joy to chat and to see your beautiful face and your wonderful artwork. It's been amazing. And thank you also to all the members who joined us. It's just lovely for us to all be able to connect via Zoom when we can't be in the same room. And hopefully the way things are looking, it won't be too long until we can all be back in the hall again. But I think the silver lining in this particular cloud is that we get to chat with people like Brenna and Charlie and other leading lights in permaculture from around the country. So keep an eye on your emails and on the Facebook group, because we'll have more stuff coming up soon.